there, this is Amy with Amy's Sewing Studio and Simple Sewing for Beginners. I want to talk to you today about fabric grain lines. The lengthwise grain of fabric, the widthwise grain of fabric, and a diagonal grain of fabric. When you go to the store and you pick fabric off the bolt and it's cut, you get this nice neat piece of fabric with your salvage edges. These are your salvage edges all lined up together, and your cut edges are all lined up together. And you may think, oh great, I've got this piece of fabric, I'm going to take it home, I'm going to go ahead and cut out whatever my project or my clothing item is. But what you need to do is pre-wash your fabric, and then you need to double check your grain lines, okay? And I will show you exactly how you do that. So, like I just said, this is your lengthwise grain of fabric, which runs parallel to these salvage edges. The salvage edges on the fabric are a more tightly woven edge, so this part of the fabric doesn't ravel. And usually tells you maybe who made the fabric. Sometimes you'll see numbers on the fabric in different colors. That shows you the different colors they used within the fabric. Sometimes you'll notice on this side you don't see that white strip, but you can tell that this is also a salvage edge by looking at the wrong side of the fabric. You can see that real skinny lighter color line. That's where they weave the fabric just a little bit closer together, so this is not going to ravel. So when you get your fabric from the store, your fabric is all, your edges are lined up. The clerk cut your fabric for you and these edges are lined up. Doesn't mean your grain lines are perpendicular to each other, and I will show you how. I've pre-washed this fabric and I folded it up with all my edges matching the way I got it home from the store, and these sides are matching, and I'm thinking, all right, my fabric's ready to go. But your fabric will tell you if your edges are perpendicular or not, and I'm going to move this fabric closer to the fold line and I will show you what happens. You can see that my fabric is not, it's not laying straight. Okay, so just because your edges are lined up doesn't mean that your grains are perpendicular to each other. So what you're going to need to do is come back up to your lengthwise edges, your lengthwise grain edges, and you're going to need to slide these edges just a little bit to see if you can get your fabric to lay flat excuse me, down at the fold. A little bit better. I need to make the fabric just a little bit more. Let me smooth it out. I'm going to go back up here, make sure my edges are lined up, which they are. Sorry about my arm in the shadow. Okay, so now you can see my fabric is flat at the fold, but there is something that happened when we move the fabric to get it to lay flat. You can see the edges are not lined up anymore, but that's okay. We're gonna straighten the edges. We'll use this mat. We'll use a clear ruler and a rotary cutter to get all our edges straightened up and ready to start our project. So with your fabric flat all the way down from the salvage edge all the way down to the fold, you know your grain lines are perpendicular. Okay, if you want to, you can give your fold a little press, which will help keep your fabric in place. Then you're going to line your fold up, either your fold or the top selvage lengthwise edge along one of your measurement lines on your mat. And then you'll take your clear ruler, and I say clear because you can see what you're doing. And you'll line your ruler up, make sure just like that. And then you'll take your rotary cutter and just cut straight up just like that, and you'll have a straight edge. You'll do the same thing on the other side. And then you're ready to start your project. One more thing I want to show you is your diagonal grain lines are 45-degree angle to your lengthwise or widthwise grain of fabric. So you can see this is your lengthwise grain. I'm pulling on the fabric, and lengthwise grain does not have that much give. So this is our lengthwise grain. Our widthwise grain is going to have a little bit more give. You can see as I pull on that, it's got a little stretch. And our widthwise grain of fabric is also the grain that goes widthwise on clothing, and the lengthwise this way is like the length of your pants or the length of a skirt or shorts or whatever. So the widthwise is a little stretchier, which is good for sitting down or bending or whatever. Your diagonal line is a 45-degree angle to either straight grain line, and you can see how much stretch that grain line really has. So that's your diagonal. So now you know how to find your lengthwise grain of fabric, your widthwise grain of fabric, and your diagonal, and how to make sure that your grain lines, length and width, are perpendicular to each other so that you can start your sewing project. I'll be back in another video with a different piece of fabric that has no selvage edge on it and show you how you can find your grain lines. Thanks for watching. Again, this is Amy with amysewingstudio.com. Bye.